It's great to meet you, Sunim. I've watched your videos for years, and thanks to your teachings, I feel more comfortable and less depressed than before. However, instead of being relatively comfortable now, unlike before, I find goals and wishes that I used to or might want to have are actually disappearing little by little. Since now I believe I should be satisfied with any situation I'd be in, whatever it would be like. I feel that my desire for improvement in life or for society is decreasing. And it is not that I don't see any problems with my life or world I'm living in, but the need or fight against for improvement seems to be gradually fading. So, for example, I mostly stay alone at work and at home currently. Sometimes I ask myself, am I being too alone? But I don't reach out to people first to be connected actively, nor go out for meeting people, not to be alone. That is because maybe I think we are just responsible for our own lives, not others in the end. And we cannot fully understand each other ultimately. So I don't feel it is mandatory to try hard to have many relationships with people, which should be or which necessarily be stay in good status. However, it doesn't mean I don't like to hang around people at all, or it doesn't mean I hate people around me. I get along with people around me well, I think, but when they leave me or I leave them, I actually do not get emotional very much. Not much sadness nor loneliness, which makes me not put much effort to keep in touch with them after all. And my family is worried if I am left alone when I get old. I sometimes get worried too if this is abnormal way of living. So my question to you is, do you think this is problematic, or is this okay because it just is one of diverse ways of living and not harming anyone? Thank you.
네, 아무 문제가 없습니다.
You have absolutely no problem.
그러나 아시아적인 가족 문화에서는 조금 다른 사람들이 좀 정이 없다 이렇게 느낄 수는 있겠네요.
However, looking at from a perspective of Asian family kind of a culture, other people in your family might see you and say, you know what, why doesn't she show more affection?
그러나 미래는 이런 식으로 더 나아갈 거예요.
But I think, in the future, we'll all drift towards this kind of relationships.
그래서 제가 볼 때는 아무 문제가 없습니다.
So I don't see any problem for you.
문제가 있다면 자기가 남하고 이렇게 적극적으로 연락 안 하면서 자기가 만약에 친구가 없다든지 외로워한다든지 하면 그게 문제예요.
If there is a problem to be, the problem becomes when you yourself feel lonely or feel longing for others or other companies without you making the effort to reach out to people.
왜냐하면 아무런 노력도 하지 않고 그런 결과를 바라니까요.
Because in that sense, you want satisfaction in your relationship without doing anything to try it.
그러니까 혼자 사는 것에 대해서 외로워하지만 않는다면 아무 문제도 없습니다.
But if you don't feel lonely by being by yourself, then there's no problem at all.
네, 부다의 가르침은 다른 사람에게 해를 끼치지 마라 하는 게 핵심입니다.
The key ethics of Buddha's precepts is that do not cause others harm.
그래서 제가 볼 때는 당신 어머니가 볼 때는 문제지만 제가 볼 때는 아무 문제도 없습니다.
So from where I sit, you have no problems. From where your mother sits, you might have problems.
그리고 앞에 말씀하신 것은 조금 불법을 잘못 이해하는 것 같습니다.
But what you said in the first part of your question, I think you have a slight misunderstanding of Buddha's teachings.
네, 원하는 것을 이루려고 그렇게 악착같이 하지 않으니까 편안해져서 좋은데 세상을 개선하려 하거나 노력을 하거나 이런 게 많이 줄었다 하는 것은 저는 바람직하진 않다 이렇게 생각합니다.
So because you're kind of detached from your own desires, that you are satisfied with the situation, whatever it may be, but when you say your desire for improving your society at large is decreasing, I don't think that's a desirable trait.
저는 뭐 제 개인적으로 뭘 해야 되겠다 하는 게 별로 없습니다.
I don't have anything that I want to do for myself to achieve individually.
그러나 저는 지구 환경 개선을 위해서 노력하고 있습니다.
But I am trying my best to improve the environment.
그리고 한반도나 세계 평화를 위해서도 노력하고 있고요.
Also trying my best to improve the chances for peace on the Korean Peninsula and the world.
또 이 절대 빈곤을 해소하기 위해서 노력하고 있습니다.
Trying my best to fight the absolute poverty we see throughout the world.
며칠 전에는 지난해 홍수가 난 파키스탄의 그 난민들을 돕는 일을 갖고 계속 의논하고 있고요. 또 오늘은 오늘은 또 시리아, 터키의 지진 피해자들에게 어떤 물품을 보낼 건지를 UNHCR하고 의논하고 있고요.
So a few days ago, we held a meeting and had a discussion to determine what kind of aid we should give to the refugees of the huge flood that Pakistan had last year. And just today, we were having a meeting with the UN HCR, discussing what kind of aids and goods we can donate through them to help other people in Syria and Turkey.
또 이렇게 여성이라고 인종적으로, 성별적으로, 계급적으로 차별받는 거는 부당하다 해서 그런 차별을 철폐하는 일에도 관심을 갖고 인권 옹호하고 있고요.
Also, engaging ourselves in that discussion to improve the human rights and the women's rights for all the women out there who are being discriminated against due to their caste, due to their gender.
네, 북한이 미사일을 쏘고 이러지만은 북한 주민들의 그 식량 부족으로 굶어 죽는 정보를 비공식적으로 계속 수집하고 어떤 지원을 할 수 있는지를 계속 연구하고 있습니다.
The state of North Korea might be shooting off missiles. However, at the same time, the people of North Korea are really in dire difficulties in terms of with huge hunger. And we are trying our best through our informal channels to gather the information and to distribute that information so people can make the right decisions.
왜 이것이 특별한 일입니까?
Why are these work special?
저도 숨을 쉬어야 되지 않습니까?
Because I also need to breathe.
그럼 공기가 맑아야죠.
Then I need my air to be fresh.
또 한반도에 전쟁이 일어난다면 나도 피해를 입지 않습니까?
If there's a war on the Korean Peninsula, I'll be one of the victims.
또 저도 어릴 때 식량 부족의 심각성을 느끼면서 자랐습니다. 겪으면서 자랐습니다.
When I was little, I also starved because there was lack of food.
이것이 왜 남의 문제입니까? 나의 문제지.
Why is this other people's problem? This is my problem.
학벌이 낮다고 뭐 영어를 못한다고 아시안이라고 뭐 우리가 세계에 나가보면 종교가 이렇게 불교라고 여러 가지 이렇게 보이지 않는 차별을 받지 않습니까?
And when we go out into the world to engage with others, we are discriminated against because I might be Asian, I might be a Buddhist, I might not speak English, or I have graduated high school.
네, 이런 것들을 우리가 개선해 나가는 것은 필요한 일이지 않습니까?
So it is up to us to improve these type of discrimination injustices we see in this world.
또 이 좋은 부처님의 법을 많은 사람들이 받아들이면 행복해질 수 있겠다 하면 적극적으로 전법을 해야 안 되겠습니까?
And if we believe that Buddha's teaching has improved my life, then isn't it up to us to try to spread, that improvement to others?
그런데 왜 우리가 이 세상을 좀 더 정의롭고 평화롭게 만들어가는 것에 왜 내가 편안해지면 더 관심을 갖지 편안해진다고 왜 관심이 없어집니까?
So just because I feel more comfortable and relaxed, why does that mean that we detach ourselves from any efforts to improve the justices throughout the world instead of being more involved?
그러니까 우리가 편안한 가운데서도 얼마든지 원을 가지고 우리는 활동을 해 나갈 수가 있습니다.
So we can still aspire to greater goods while being at peace, while being in comfort.
뭐 누구한테 연락하고 안 하고 이것은 뭐 하고 싶으면 하고 싫어도 안 해도 되고 이거는 자유로운 일입니다.
So calling somebody else or not, you can do it if you want to, or you don't do it if you don't want to. You're free to choose whatever you want.
네, 그래서 그 후자연은 질문자의 삶에 아무 문제가 없다는 저의 견해를 말씀드렸고요. 전자는 조금 욕망대로 하겠다 하다가 그걸 내려놓으니까 일종의 반작용이라 할까? 그럼 뭐 세상에 난 관심 없다 이런 일시적 반작용이 아닌가 싶습니다.
So in the latter part of your question, I fully agree. You have the right not to. Everything is fine if you don't feel lonely by being yourself. But in the first part of your question, just because you feel calmer and satisfied with your situation, doesn't mean that you need to lose interest over the justices, or injustice of the world and to engage in the world to better it.
전 아무 할 일도 아무 할 일도 안 해도 되고요. 할 일이 없습니다. 사실 이제 뭐 나이 70인데 할 일이 뭐 있겠어요. 그러나 동시에 할 일이 매우 많습니다.
So as for me, I don't really have to do anything. I'm 70 years old at this stage. I don't really need to do anything. At the same time, I have so much to do.
네, 저는 뭐 다른 사람의 질문이 없거나 다른 할 일이 없으면 저는 주로 농사일을 합니다.
And if I don't, have any Dharma talks, I need to answer questions or something, then I just go farm.
네, 농사일은 뭐 끝이 없습니다.
And there's no end to farming.
어제도 잠깐 시간이 나서 시골에 내려가서 얼농사를 어떻게 짓느냐 하고 농사 짓는 사람들과 이렇게 현장 답사를 하면서 의논하고 올라왔습니다.
Even yesterday, I took a couple of hours to go down to our farm in rural Korea and discuss with those people who are actually farming to consult with them.
지난 3년은 저에게 아주 좋은 시간이었습니다. 코로나 때문에요. 농사를 지을 수 있었어. 그런데 지금은 이제 다른 일이 바빠져서 농사 지을 기회가 점점 줄어들지 않나 생각합니다.
So last 3 years, thanks to COVID, I was a very good time for me to actually take a little break and really, focus on my farming. But now that the pandemic seems to be getting over, I'm getting busier, so not as much time to farm.
네, 이런 상황이 되면 이렇게 하고 저런 상황이 되면 저렇게 해나가면 됩니다.
So basically, depending on the circumstance, situation, you adapt to do the best you can.
네, 제가 말이 길어졌네요.
Sorry for the length of my
그러니
response.
첫째, 결론적으로 말씀드리면 질문자는 아무 문제가 없다.
So in conclusion, basically, you have no problems at all.
네. 그러나 그 내 삶의 내 행위에 따른 반드시 과보는 있다.
However, there are consequences to your behaviors.
내가 사람들에게 연락을 안 하면 그 사람들도 나한테 점점 연락을 안 하게 된다.
Because if you don't reach out to people, they will stop reaching back out to you.
내가 다른 사람에게 뭔가 서비스를 안 하게 되면 그들도 나에게 점점 안 하게 된다.
And if I don't provide service to others, then they won't provide service to me.
그 결과를 받아들여야 된다는 거예요.
But you have to be ready to accept the consequences.
다른 사람의 관심을 받고 싶으면 나도 다른 사람에게 관심을 갖고 많은 서비스를 해야 되는 거예요.
Because if you want the spotlight on yourself, then you also have to give others the spotlight.
그걸 힘들다고 생각하면 안 돼요. 내가 원하는 일이니까.
And this can't be suffering to you because this is what you want.
자기 얘기해 보세요.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for your answers. So yes, for the second part of my question, I was about to ask that what actually I feel alone when I get old, but that's, I think, kind of unnecessary kind of worries, and it actually caused by the my behavior or thoughts to avoid the consequences that I've done. So yeah, I will just try to accept the consequences I've done and that I'm doing now or in the past. Thank you for that. And for the first part of my question, I think I feel much more comfortable now, but maybe I'm ignoring the problems or things for improvement. and maybe I don't take those things as my own thing. I mean, I don't take in those problems as my thing. So as you just mentioned, for example, like environment problems, human rights problems, it actually should be my thing, my problem, but maybe I just ignore it, or maybe I take it as others' problem, not mine. So I understand your point fully, I guess, and we'll try to be part of the people or society that fight against for the improvement from now on. So thank you for your answers.
일본에 살면서 한국 사람에게 차별받고, 미국에 살면서 동양인이라고 차별받고, 또 여성이라고 좀 성진의 차별을 받고, 이렇게 하면 이게 차별은 좀 문제가 있다 이렇게 느낄 거예요. 아직 차별을 별로 안 받아봐서 그래요.
As an ethnic Korean living in Japan, facing that discrimination, or as an Asian woman living in everywhere, facing some kind of discrimination in terms of, rising through the ranks in your company and whatnot, maybe you haven't really been discriminated against in your life. That's why you're so comfortable.
수행 차원에서는 그 차별할 수밖에 없는 것을 인정하고 받아들여야 됩니다.
So from a practice perspective, you have to understand the structural forces that's leading to that discrimination and acknowledge it.
그래야 내 마음에 이 불평이나 이렇게 화가 없어집니다.
Because that way you don't create anger within yourself.
그러나 우리는 다른 사람을 생각할 때 이런 것은 개선돼야 된다 하는 관점을 분명히 가져야 합니다.
But at the same time, looking at the larger society, we realize that those discrimination, those structures are targets for improvements.
이것은 사회적 정의적 측면에서나 자연적 흐름에도 맞지 않습니다.
Because from a perspective of social justice, of even the natural flow of things, they go against it.
그래서 편안한 가운데 우리는 사회 정의를 위해서 행동을 해야 합니다.
So in midst of your personal inner peace, you have to engage in trying to improve the justice in this world.
내가 화가 나서 사회 정의를 실현하려 그러면 폭력적으로 되기가 쉽습니다.
Because if you try to actualize social justice from a place of anger, then it's likely to turn violent.
갈등을 더 부풀리게 됩니다.
Then you create even more conflicts and injustice.
또 그것을 받아들인다고 해서 사회적인 어떤 개선을 하지 않으면 그러면 지배 질서를 용인하고 불평등을 용인하고 이렇게 사는 지배 질서에 협조하는 결과밖에 되지 않습니다.
But just because you're comfortable, you found your niche within the current structure of social injustice and you don't do anything about it, then you are giving up on your responsibility, to try to improve the world.
지난 역사 속에서 종교나 또는 수행이라는 이름으로 왕권의 지배 질서에 남성 중심의 질서에 순종하는 이런 오류를 범했습니다.
Because in the past, we've seen the mistakes that spiritual practices or religious traditions have made by marrying themselves to the powers that be and really reinforcing, the power structure, the patriarchy that victimized others.
오늘날 중국이나 북한 같은 데서는 국가주의적인 측면에서 순정을 강요하고 있고요. 중동 같은 데서는 종교적인 것으로 순정을 강요하고 있지 않습니까?
For example, if you see China and North Korea of the world, they're demanding obedience from a political perspective. You see countries in the Middle East, they're demanding the same obedience, but from a religious perspective.
이것은 우리가 지난 역사에서 우리도 다 겪어왔습니다.
We have all gone through this in history.
그러니까 사회 정의를 우리는 평화적으로 언제나 꾸준히 실천해 나가야 합니다.
So our work for social justice has to be consistent and constant, but from a place of peace.
물론 무엇이 정의냐 하는 것은 또 새로운 논의가 필요합니다.
Of course, the question, what is justice, is a separate discussion.
편안한 가운데 사회적 실천을 해나가시기 바랍니다.
So, in midst of peace, I want you to continually engage consistently and constantly in your work for society.